When the first trailer of Venom: The Last Dance was released, I shared various breakdown theories and detailed insights on my channel about Venom's thrilling storylines, giving you a rough idea of the potential within this character's story. Venom is a fan favorite, and despite the mild reviews for the previous two movies, they were still quite popular among fans. Now that I've watched Venom: The Last Dance, I can't help but wonder why filmmakers are treating such a beloved character with so much potential in this manner. Venom: The Last Dance has been released, and while the movie had its moments, it often felt like it was directed by someone who was directing for the first time. The first Venom movie had a decent story. Venom: Let There Be Carnage was a fair sequel, and Venom: The Last Dance serves as an adequate conclusion to the trilogy. The central plot of this movie revolves around both Venom and Eddie Brock being pursued by their respective enemies from their worlds, with Knull being introduced here. If we talk about the theme, it feels like there's an underlying message to keep oneself open to possibilities. A family is shown visiting Area 51, enjoying a happy outing just before its destruction. By the end of the movie, the perspective of the family members changes. There's a brief discussion about family between Eddie and Venom, but it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. Let's start with the direction and writing. The movie was written by Kelly Marshall, who collaborated with Tom Hardy, who plays Eddie Brock. Kelly was one of the three writers for the first Venom movie and the solo writer for the second one. The writing is somewhat problematic here, as the story feels scattered. The main goal of the scientists Strickland and Imperial was to capture Eddie, which they successfully did, so there should have been no more problems after that. The allegiance of Patrick Mulligan was unclear. He's an important character in the comics, and yet he was written off here. In the first movie, the bonding between the symbiote and host wasn't as straightforward as it's shown here. However, the comedy and emotional aspects were well conveyed, where the dialogues were well written, everyone was laughing, and some even got emotional by the end. The movie stayed somewhat accurate to the comics on various fronts. Knull's storyline was partially depicted to resemble his comic origin, and sending his creatures after the Codex was comic accurate. However, I didn't enjoy the way Eddie and Venom's storyline was closed without leaving any potential for the future. This makes one wonder how Knull would return later on. Directed by Kelly Marshall, this movie marks her directorial debut, and her approach leaned more toward an alien-themed movie than a superhero or anti-hero film. Directors have the power to shape a movie's narrative, and here, much of the focus was on a family's curiosity about aliens rather than on Venom as a lethal protector. The ending also felt a bit rushed, though an effort was made to keep it coherent. Regarding action, this movie had more action scenes than the previous two, starting with Eddie and Venom freeing some fighting dogs. The part where Strickland and Xenophage pursue Eddie was well executed, and the second half was packed with action as new symbiotes bonded with new hosts. Thankfully, the CGI didn't hold back, as sometimes filmmakers cut back on visual effects to save costs. CGI and VFX fluctuated between colorful and dark tones. For instance, the scenes with Knull were dark, but the movie begins with a bright, humorous tone. I regretted not noticing that I had booked a 3D screening. I've made this mistake before, as with Transformers. I later watched it in 2D and would recommend that others do the same to enjoy the brightness. Tom Hardy did an excellent job portraying Eddie Brock with funny and impactful interactions with Venom. However, it was strange that Eddie Brock's identity as a journalist was overlooked, and the conclusion seemed rushed. Hardy's acting is impressive, and he could have achieved a reputation like Hugh Jackman or Robert Downey Jr. if his character had more crossovers or adventures. Juno Temple, another key actor, had a role that felt underwritten. Though she performed well with the material given, her character could have been developed further. Shiv Telfer's character, which required him to hide his motives, lacked enough depth due to the writing. Despite this, his portrayal was solid, and it's interesting that the primary cast, being British actors, played American roles, which added a comedic undertone. Andy Serkis lent his voice to Knull, effectively giving the character an intimidating presence that suggests intense future interactions with others. The movie features two post-credit scenes hinting at Knull's return, though it's unclear how, as he spent the entire movie attempting to break free. In the comics, Knull's threat escalates during the Absolute Carnage event, where he finally emerges, creating a thrilling future setup. If the writers had shown Knull somehow winning by the movie's end, it would have made his future in the series clearer. In the video's beginning, I mentioned that Venom is a fan favorite, evident from the unexpectedly high box office openings of the previous movies. So, are filmmakers taking this for granted? The writer from the last film was criticized heavily for the screenplay of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So why didn't they bring a new writer for Venom, The Last Dance? Some characters have an A-list status, where audiences will turn up regardless of quality, but a movie that concludes a character's journey deserves more than a mild treatment. The movie opened well domestically, better than its predecessor, but Venom deserves a better treatment than this. Did the end credits feel slightly drawn out to you too? And while the post-credit scene was somewhat humorous, what are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments. If possible, leave a detailed review. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and share it, and subscribe to our channel for more contents. To understand how powerful Knull is, watch the video above. And to know upcoming 10 Marvel movies, watch the one below. I'll be back with a new video soon.